Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Forgotten Hockey Players of Broadway, a nostalgic look back at our favorite Rangers from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm Tom Browning, along with my co-host Rob Berger. We can be heard on Google Play, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and of course, our website at gotommyboyproductions.libsyn.com. That's gotommyboyproductions.libsyn.com. Please check it out. You can capture all of our episodes on our webpage. You can contact us by just clicking on the contact bar. You can leave a message. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear about the players that you would like for us to profile. Love to hear about maybe some of the seasons other than the 60s, 70s, and 80s that really made an impact on you as a fan. Again, we will be going off the menu every once in a while. We'll be talking about the current day New York Rangers, the state of the franchise, and again, we love to talk about previous playoff games, impactful trades that took place in New York Rangers history. So wherever you listen to us, please hit subscribe. It's free. So without further ado, here are your hosts, Tom Browning and Rob Berger. Welcome to another edition of the Forgotten Hockey Players of Broadway. I'm Tom Browning, along with my great friend and co-host, Rob Berger. Rob, how you doing today, bud?
Not bad. Happy summer. Happy almost an NHL draft.
Yeah, and congratulations to the St. Louis Blues for winning the Stanley Cup. We have a very special show today. Along with Rob, we have Logan Smith, the son of a very dear friend of mine who I used to work with in a previous life. And Logan has, he's from Columbus, Ohio. He's got a real good feel for the Columbus Blue Jackets, who had a very good regular season this year, but for the first time actually won a round in the playoffs. And Logan will touch a little bit about that. And, of course, our featured spotlight today is on John Tortorella, the current head coach of Columbus Blue Jackets. And, Logan, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Yeah, good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. Our pleasure. So, guys, real quickly, what do you think about the humongous upset? The St. Louis Blues winning the Stanley Cup.
I don't think it was that humongous of an upset. They've been, since the beginning of 2019, they've been such a great hockey team.
Yeah, that's true. They have been a great hockey team. But, I mean, who would have thought, though, that they would really upset the Boston Bruins the way Tuukka Rask was playing? I mean, Binnington, of course, Rob, you stated early on that you thought this guy was for real. And, of course, being a little bit of a skeptic that I am, I figured that could he stand the test of time, the rigors of the playoffs after being up for not even a full season. Logan, what is your take on Binnington? Did you get a chance to really study him at all? What were your thoughts on this kid coming out of nowhere and leading his team to the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I mean, aside from maybe the Jackets sweeping Tampa, obviously I think the Blues were the story of the playoffs and story of the season, considering they were, dead last start of the year. And then, Binnington comes in, they go on that massive streak and then, get into the playoffs. The thing I was impressed with was the way they bounced back after a loss, just throughout any of the series in the playoffs, especially Binnington. He showed a lot of resolve, especially in that finals. Game 3, first Stanley Cup final game in 50 years at home, and they lay an egg, give up 7 or 8 goals at home, and then they bounce back Game 4 and even up the series, and then of course losing Boston Game 5, and then he responds with 2 big games. I was watching Game 7, and I was just in awe of some of the saves he was making. So congrats to them.
Yeah, it was incredible. Some of the saves he made, especially early on, Rob, were just theme setters for that game. I mean, it completely derailed the Bruins. It really took the wind out of the sails of the fans, too. I mean, I've never seen the Boston Garden being so quiet during a playoff game. I mean, it was just he just stood on his head. I mean, and Ryan O'Reilly was just so determined, too. I mean, that was a determined Blues team. Like Logan said, they laid an egg at home, giving up 6-7 goals, and then going into Boston, marching in there, and really dominating from, I shouldn't say dominating territorially because Binnington stood on his head, but really rising to the occasion.
Yeah, and what made it so impressive to me was that Binnington played over 70 hockey games this season, and he'd only hit the 50 mark once, and that was back in his OHL days. This is a guy that was playing 30 to 40 games a year. Only played 31 games last year. Coincidentally, he played those 31 games in Providence with the Bruins as he was on loan to them. So to have a goalie not get exhausted, the first goalie ever to win all 16 games in the postseason. What a position the Blues are in going forward.
But to me, I still found it to be an upset. I mean, did you really think they really stood a chance to go in and beat the Bruins the way the Bruins played all year round? I mean, they were a model of consistency all year. Don Sweeney did a great job building that club. And I don't know, the year Marchand had, Bergeron, and to me, they just... I was really surprised, and especially after Game 6, that the Blues had the resolve to come back and show the guts to win that series. I just didn't think they'd have a chance in Game 7. As a matter of fact, I think you and I texted each other, Rob, and I think you predicted a 4-1 Bruin win, and I had something similar to that. We were almost right, but the wrong team, I guess.
Yeah.
Right score, wrong team.
I did not think that St. Louis could win Game 7. I really didn't. Foolish, idea by me, though, as usual. Not bad. Yeah. I don't know how many playoff series I picked right this season.
Not many. I know I haven't. But, Logan, I think you're right. I think they showed a lot of resolve. And, Ryan O'Reilly, to me, was just – well, he did win, I guess, the MVP of the series, did he not?
He did.
Yeah, he got the Conn Smythe.
I really gained an appreciation for the guy's energy level. I mean, he's a whirling dervish out there. He really is. He's physical. He's relentless. And he's got a little bit of a touch, too. He's got some offensive game to him.
And he broke a lot of hearts in Buffalo were breaking.
Yeah, that's true. And he was the third line. I mean, he's known for his defensive prowess, right? I mean, I know he's a two-way player, but hasn't he been up for consideration for the defensive awards in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, and he's also for Lady Byng. They brought him in to score and to be productive on those top two lines. And he sure did. What a change a year ago. I don't know if you recall, he did that postseason interview in Buffalo, pretty much saying how he just did not enjoy playing hockey there.
Yeah.
And they made that trade for Sabaka. It was Sabaka and Berglund and Tage Thompson, and that did not work out at all for Buffalo. Just another negative mark on that franchise.
You have to give kudos though to Tuukka Rask. He had a good series, but he just didn't measure up in the last game. He was okay. He made some good saves against St. Louis. He just couldn't match Binnington, and Chara was just a beast. I mean, to come back and play with a broken jaw in 2 or 3 places, and the guy played well. I thought he actually saved a goal in one series in Game 7, and I thought he played well. It just goes to show that National Hockey League players are so tough. They are such a tough breed. What are your thoughts on Tuukka Rask's game and also some of the stars of the Bruins either exceeding expectations or maybe not meeting expectations? Logan, why don't you go first?
Yeah. Like you said, I thought there was some conversation before Game 7 that even if the Bruins were to lose, that Rask may still take home the Conn Smythe as an MVP of the playoffs. He was fantastic throughout all of his series. I know in the Carolina series he gave up 5 goals in the 4-game sweep. So, and then he stole quite a few games in the Columbus series that led to that 4-2 series victory. As far as the top line, I know they kind of struggled 5-on-5 play throughout the Stanley Cup final. And I ultimately think that was the difference in the series. You had the Blues top guys going.
Yep.
And the Blues, their power play was almost non-existent throughout the series. And then,
awful.
Terrible. And the Bruins, they were on fire throughout the entirety of the playoffs on the power play. They just couldn't get anything going 5-on-5.
Yeah, Rob, I think 5-on-5 was the story of the playoffs. The Blues were just great 5-on-5. The Bruins had an incredible power play really all year, including the playoffs. But, I think the 5-on-5 made the difference, Rob. And how about Craig Berube, the tough fighter from Philadelphia Flyer and Washington Capitol days, coming in and being recognized as a pretty good assistant coach, and coming in and leading the Blues to the Stanley Cup. And he did coach the Flyers at one time, wasn't he? He was head coach of the Flyers at one time, and I believe they dismissed him. And you wonder if Philadelphia is regretting that move today.
Philadelphia is definitely regretting that move today. I can't believe they gave up on him so quickly. They never had that stacked of a roster to make a coaching move like that. And, yeah, he's set now. He's in that pantheon of coaches that won a cup earlier in their career. A little like who we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, that's very true. I guess there are similarities to Tortorella, although Torts never made, the National Hockey League. Berube was, obviously he was not a goon so much, but he was up there. He was a tough guy, and I believe he had over 300 minutes in penalties 1 year with Philadelphia, and he was a tough, very tough guy, one of the better fighters in the National Hockey League. Real quick on the Rangers, we got the draft coming up tomorrow night. And looks like it's going to be Hughes to the Devils and Capo Caco to the Rangers. What are your thoughts on that, Rob? Do you think Ray Shiro's going to pull a fast one and switch, or do you think, because I thought the last show, I believe you thought that he was going to make a switch and select Caco. Do you think he's still going to do that?
From a PR perspective, I think they need to draft Hughes to bring in the American kid.
Yeah.
If I think Hughes should fall to the Rangers, though. I don't think he will, but I don't see him as being as ready as Capo. Playing professional hockey overseas, 6'2", 200, almost 200 pounds, opposed to Jack Hughes, who still needs to put on a solid 15, 20 pounds. I don't think he's at a level of being ready like McDavid was, or Taylor Hall, any of these, Crosby, these guys that came right in, even at Tavares. I don't think Hughes is there yet.
No, he's not. And the Rangers don't have the players to protect him, to give him the time and space. They really don't. And I agree with you. I think the Rangers need a strong power forward. They haven't had a power forward in forever. And I think they need a guy like Cappy to come in and become that bona fide NHL superstar power forward that they haven't had, And I think with Ray Shiro's involvement with Hockey USA, and I think he's got some relationship with the Hughes family, and I think Hughes is going to go to the Devils. I really do think that, and I think the Rangers are going to be blessed with a power forward that they haven't had in decades. And what are your thoughts, Logan? Do you see any changes in the top couple of picks? And what do you think Columbus is going to do with their selection this year?
So, I think no matter who the Devils take, I think the Rangers are going to get a sensational player, no matter who it is. Both of those guys, Capo or Hughes, are going to be valuable to whichever team they're taken for. As far as the Jackets, they actually only have 2 picks this year in the draft. That was kind of the all-in approach that Jarmo Kekalainen took at the trade deadline when he sent most of his draft picks away for Duchesne, Dzingel, and Adam McQuaid. So I haven't actually been too into the draft for this year, only because the Jackets only have 2 picks. Their first one won't be to the 3rd round. But I mean, I was watching Caco play in the World Championships, and that kid's unbelievable.
He is. He really is a special player. But like you said, the Jackets did go all in. Yeah, it'll be interesting with John Davidson now going to the Rangers, leading that organization as president, giving Jeff Gorton the room that he needs to be, the GM that everyone thinks that he can be. I guess it's a big void that Columbus is going to have to fill up in that leadership spot. And it'll be interesting with only 2 picks, like you said, if the Blue Jackets can continue to build that team, and to get to the promised land next year. It will be very interesting. But let's get to our featured profile personality today, and that is John Tortorella, Torts. We know him very well here in New York. He came up, Rob, right, with, I guess, the Tampa Bay organization as the head coach. Prior to that, he had a brief stint with the Rangers as an assistant coach, and then a 4-game stint to close out, I believe it was the 2000 season with the Rangers. The team didn't make the playoffs, so the Tampa Bay club was the first opportunity he had to really run a team from the very beginning. I guess a former colleague of his or teammate of his from the minor leagues was one of the owners of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I guess he provided that opportunity for Tortorella to get the job with Tampa Bay, and he had a great run there, winning a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, he right in a different era of hockey, right before the lockout, he provided that last cup before we missed out on hockey for a while. But yeah, he turned that team around when he got to Tampa Bay. They were a team that had not made the playoffs. See, they missed the playoffs in his first 2 years. But then after missing the playoffs in those first 2 years, 2 years later, he won a Stanley Cup. Great series, that great Game 6 in Calgary. Really, like we said, cementing himself then as just a coach that, we'll talk about it, I guess, as we move on with Tortorella. But how how much equity does he have left with that cup?
Well, that's true. Although his clubs have made the playoffs virtually every year he's coached. I think he's made the playoffs 11 times in his career. Won the Jack Adams Award twice, right? He won in 2004 when he won the Cup with Tampa Bay, and I think he won one other year, right? He won the Jack Adams Award. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2016 with Columbus.
Columbus. Yeah. He's a hard-nosed guy. He played his hockey in the East Coast Hockey League, which is a rough-and-tumble league. Pretty good goal scorer in his own right. A small guy, a right winger. He had a couple 20-goal seasons, 30-goal seasons in the minor leagues. An in-your-face type of guy. I think he had 80, 90 penalty minutes a couple of those seasons. So, like his personality, he was an aggressive player for a little guy when he played minor league hockey, but that definitely translated as a head coach too. And, he had a great run with Tampa Bay. And then, of course, he had took over for Tom Renney with the New York Rangers. I guess that was in 2009. He came to the Rangers midseason in February to replace Tom Renney. And he really brought a different mindset to the club. He brought a real no-nonsense approach. The team was dedicated to playing defense first. They led the league in block shots, I think, a couple of those years. I mean, everybody was expected to block shots, from the top line, the forwards, down to the defensemen. They were one of the hardest working teams in the National Hockey League. And then, I guess his act wore thin with James Dolan and some of the players on the club, and maybe even Glenn Sather. And he was out of the job, and then he went to Vancouver for a year, and then he went to Columbus. I don't know, Rob. What are your thoughts about his career with the Rangers? What did you think about his tenure there? What he brought to the table, how he left the team, etc.
Yeah, it's so mixed because of when he left. A lot of disappointment. I think especially those last 2 years, the 2012 team and 2013 team. I really think the 2012 team should have beaten the Devils, gone to the Cup. The team finished in first. They finished in second the next year.
Right.
Arguably the way the Rangers history has been, he's still one of the best coaches in Rangers history.
Oh, no doubt.
Those five seasons are really four in that piece of his first year when he came in 2009 are arguably one of the best stretches in club history. You can argue, the team the next year went to the Cup with pretty much the same roster. The question with Tortorella is how many did he get everything he could have out of his players? Did he alienate them too much, or was it just what they needed? I think it was definitely what they needed after Tom Renney. Tom Renney has the reputation of a player, definitely a player's coach, almost the antithesis of what a John Tortorella is. But how long does that last? He's going to he's going to his fifth year in Columbus now. This season's where he was in New York, pretty much where he did a little more than that in Tampa Bay before the bottom fell out there. But yeah, I think Rangers fans should remember that the Tortorella era positively.
Yeah, I think he got everything, Logan. I thought he got everything out of the Rangers that he possibly could. The Rangers were never blessed with the offensive superstar talent that he had at Tampa Bay, and probably what he has at Columbus too, with Panarin and some of the other players they have. The Rangers were a very workmanlike team. They never had elite talent on that club except for Lundqvist in goal. And Rob knows my feeling about Lundqvist as it comes to clutch play in the playoffs, but
yeah.
I think Tortorella is the type of guy that does get every ounce of talent out of his players. I think his clubs usually overachieve as opposed to underachieve. How would you assess his performance with Columbus based on the talent that he has? Where is he right now with the organization as far as his standing goes? How is he perceived by the folks in Columbus?
Yeah, I love Torts, especially for Columbus and the kind of the small hockey market that they are. At the time when he came in, they definitely needed a coach who was going to provide some accountability for the players and for the team. I think he's stepped right in and done that. I do think they have kind of overachieved. In that 2016 season, they had that 16-game winning streak. They finished the season with 108 points, which is still only good enough for third in their division. But I think he's been exactly what this organization has needed. There were some trying times this season, when the Jackets was very up and down regular season for them. And I do think some of the fans got a little frustrated with some of his lineup decisions, some of his healthy scratches night in and night out. But I think the playoff run kind of reinvigorated the fan base and their feelings toward Torts. And I think moving forward, I don't expect the team to really tune him out or not buy into his system. And I think, he'll move forward with the players that we have going into next year. I know there's a few free agents that'll probably hit the market, but I do think he'll continue to motivate the team and continue to provide some accountability for the organization.
Yeah, Rob, I think it should be interesting. It'd be interesting to see how he can perform without the likes of Panarin and Bobrovsky and maybe a few others who might be on the move. Can Torts sustain that winning edge? Will he lose the clubhouse without some of the superstar talent that he has? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, it's easy to see Tortorella, being successful with that strong roster, but what Tortorella is stepping into next season is really rough. So many guys leaving, or potentially leaving. Only four defensemen under contract right now. Really no number one goaltender under contract right now. A lot of work needs to be done, and a team that's young, that'll end up being a little younger, how they respond to Tortorella, I'm not as confident about.
Yeah, it's gonna be a challenge for him, and it's. With losing comes tough questions from the press, right? And is there a more entertaining coach in the National Hockey League when it comes to dealing with the press? I mean, I had a great time in preparing for this podcast. I did go back on YouTube to watch some of his press conferences. There's a litany of the best of Tortorella on YouTube. I had no idea there was that much stuff on YouTube on Torts. His best moments, his funniest moments, his most angry moments. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And boy, was he entertaining. I mean, here in New York, he had Larry Brooks, the Hall of Fame hockey writer from the New York Post. I mean, he and Brooksy used to go at it all the time, which, right, Rob? I mean, that was entertainment right there. I mean, that was worth the price of admission watching those two guys go at it. And I can imagine, Logan, he probably had similar exchanges in Columbus with the sports writers, huh?
Yeah, there was an instance this past season. He was doing a press conference after practice, and one of the reporter's phones went off, started ringing in front of him on the podium. And so he decided to pick it up and answer, and it was the reporter's mom calling. And so it was a good laugh. People in the room, all the reporters got a good laugh out of it, but he's also had press conferences that have lasted maybe 10 to 15 seconds after a bad loss. So we've definitely seen both sides of it.
Yeah, Rob, he hates cell phones. Yeah, that's one of the things he used to hate, was those cell phones, man. Those cell phones going off, he would just end the conference right there. Yeah, he had some tough ones, didn't he, Rob, in New York?
Oh, my. Like you said, you could just spend 3 hours too watching his New York press conferences. I wonder how his relationship with Brooks is now when he comes to town. I wonder if they laugh about all those difficult scrums that they had, and him challenging Brooksy to a fight.
Oh my God, that was something. Yes.
I'm split. It's good, but I think it gets a little annoying. I understand. A lot of these guys, especially now with the proliferation of how many people are covering teams instead of just one beat reporter and like one national guy. It's a job. There's questions to answer. It's kind of hypocritical how he expects so much from his team, yet he's quick to fly off the handle on his own, walk into the other team's tunnel and start a fight. Yeah,
well, right, that's true. Today, not only are the athletes coached on how to deal with the media, but so is the coach, and they have to represent the team in the best possible light, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well. And, they go through rigorous training in preseason and exhibition season, reminders to, behave and represent the team in the most positive way. And, that's an important thing. The image of the team, the face of the team. Today it's different. Like you said, with all the exposure that's out there today, you really can't cut up, like he did probably back 5-10 years ago. And you wonder if that's going to be his Achilles heel going forward, or if at his age, at 60 years old, Logan, if he can change his ways, and if he can teach an old dog new tricks, and if he can simmer down and just, do his job when it comes to the press and the media. And it's funny, he was part of the media at one time, right? Between the Rangers job and the Canucks job, wasn't he part of TSN at one time doing analysis? I think he did.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He absolutely did. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how we can handle that. And I think this year will pose a lot of challenges for him if they do wind up losing because of the lack of talent. Is his relationship with the press decent, or does he have are there issues now that have to be smoothed over? Has it gotten to the point where the honeymoon is over yet, or what is his relationship with the press and the community in Columbus?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's much more laid back. There's not a lot of pressure on him in Columbus like there is in New York, obviously, with that big of a market. He's gotten into it before with a couple of the local beat reporters. But I do think, for the most part, he tries to answer every question that's asked of him. The thing that gets him nowadays is when reporters ask a question, he gives an answer, or he says he won't answer it, and then they continue to pepper him with that same question. He definitely does not tolerate repeat questions. As far as the community, I think the community loves him. I know he was saying after the Jackets won the playoff series this year against Tampa, he had, countless number of people come up to his house in the community and just say how much that series win meant to them, that they had been, lifelong Jackets fans. And he said that really made him feel good. He said that, the people of Columbus really do deserve to see their hockey team have some success. And then he also has a dog foundation in Columbus that he and his wife run. I know every Wednesday on the local radio he has an hour-long spot. It's called Hockey and Hounds. He's a really huge advocate for shelters and protecting dogs that maybe are having a rough time. So I think he's definitely been accepted in the community. As far as the honeymoon period, I don't know. Like you said, this is going to be probably one of the bigger years in franchise history, regardless of who's coaching. But the fact that it is Torts, I think it'll definitely add some extra, storyline to this season.
Yeah, he had the same foundation with the dogs in New York as well.
Yeah, that's right.
He had that as well. But you're right, it's going to be a very important season for Torts. Rob, what do you expect? What do you expect from Torts going forward? It's tough for me to imagine he's going to mellow.
I don't know how long he stays in Columbus, unless he sees this as his last job. Because unless some miracle happens and they can re-sign all these guys or bring something in without a big draft, it's going to be a couple of years until a few years until Columbus is a top flight contender again. Like I said, unless he wants this to be his last job, I don't know why he would stick it out there for too long.
Yeah, well, he's 60 years old now, so I think he'll be 61 at the start of the next season. I'm not sure about Columbus's pipeline, if they have a lot of youngsters just about ready to enter the league, and the quality of those kids. I mean, is there much depth in that organization to maybe fill the gap that maybe Bobrovsky and Panarin are going to create when they leave? Any thoughts on that, guys? Anyone have any, Logan, any insight into that? Are there, they looked at as a very talented, deep organization as far as their prospects go?
I think maybe ranking-wise they are, but there's a lot of unproven talent in the minor league system. I know in the playoffs you saw a guy like Alexander Texier. He's 18 years old. He came over from France. He played the last few games of the regular season. He actually had a pretty productive series against Tampa. So he is a guy moving forward. He does have a few games of experience, but you just don't know what you'll get with him. They have a first rounder from 2018, I believe, Liam Foodie. He's expected to make a run at the team this season. But again, these are all, unproven guys. As far as goaltending goes, they do have Jonas Korpisalo, who's been their backup for the last few seasons. But again, his biggest weakness is just the inconsistency. He'll have one game where he'll, make 30, 35 saves, give up a couple goals, and the next game, the team's having to score 5-6 goals just to even be in the game. So they do have apparently the number one goalie prospect coming up this next year. His name is Elvis Leekens. He just came over from Croatia. It might have been Latvia, actually. But anyways, so as far as the other depth, I really just think at this point it's kind of too early to tell what they have.
Well, with a name like Elvis, the kid can't He can't lose.
I hope so. There's a lot of pressure on him, though, so we'll see.
Yeah, I can imagine. Rob, we talk about Lundqvist and his tradability or lack of tradability, and we've mentioned San Jose, and of course, with the Rangers signing Jacob Trouba this week or trading for him this week, people feel that maybe this will give Lundqvist a chance to restore some of his earlier goaltending performances and become an elite goaltender again. But could you see a team like Columbus with John Tortorella as a coach and with Bobrovsky leaving, can you see an opening where the Rangers make a deal with Columbus, and trading Lundqvist back to Torts, who obviously knows Lundqvist very, very well, to try to fill that gap while Columbus is built to win right now? And I mean, San Jose is another obvious destination choice or opportunity for Lundqvist. What are your thoughts about Columbus being a potential destination for the King?
I can't imagine that happening. I can't imagine him approving a trade to go to Columbus. That's a lot of money for Columbus to spend right now when they have so many guys that they need to get under contract. And if you're going to spend that kind of money, why not go after Varlamov, or have someone to split time with Korpisalo, a Cam Talbot, a Brian Elliott, maybe even Robin Lehner, who coming off that amazing year.
Sure.
With the Islanders, there's so many. Even you can get so many. There's so many guys out there for halftime, like Mrazek, also Mike Smith, guys that are capable of splitting time as opposed to putting all your money when you have to re-sign so many free agents. I guess the biggest. I'll leave it up to ask you, Logan. I mean, is the biggest priority defense with Werenski, signing one of the forwards? Are you going to let Panarin and Duchesne go, and so on?
Yeah, I think they do definitely want to get Werenski under contract, and he's made it clear that he does want to stick around in Columbus. I know he's a Detroit kid, and with Yzerman heading back to Detroit, it's kind of the hot place right now to be, especially for a Red Wings fan growing up like he is. But yeah, I mean, there's also Ryan Murray. They have to make a decision with him. He's a top 3 draft pick, I think back in 2011 for the Jackets, and they're going to have to make some tough decisions here of what they want to do moving forward. As far as the offensive side of the game, I think at this point it's pretty much set in stone that Panarin will be walking, either going to Florida or New York, one of those 2 destinations. I think the number 1 priority right now should be to re-sign Duchesne, because he has made it clear that he is interested in potentially coming back to Columbus. However, he does want to weigh his other options. So I think forward-wise, Duchesne is potentially the only guy they could maybe re-sign. But again, that's not definite either. So if he doesn't re-sign, they're going to have to see what their young guys can do.
Yeah, it's I don't know. With Davidson now in New York, obviously there's that Columbus-New York connection now. Mm-hmm. You got Tortorella in Columbus. They went all in this year to win the Stanley Cup. We talked about Torts' tenure. Is he going to be happy losing 2 big stars? And if the team is built to win right now, Rob, all the goaltenders that you mentioned, I don't know if any of those guys can catapult the team into Stanley Cup contention. I mean, a lot of them have seen their better days, the Mike Smiths. Leonard is a possibility, but I think he really wants to sign back with the Islanders again. Varlamov, he's had his moments with the Capitals. I don't know. I mean, who potentially amongst that group would Torts be the most comfortable with? And now with Davidson in New York and the connection he has with who's the GM now? Is it who took over the GM spot, Logan, at the top spot?
So it's Jarmo Kekalainen. He moved up from GM role to the. He's not. I don't think he retained the president of hockey ops title that Davidson has, but Jarmo and Bill Zito, they'll be running the show in the front office.
Yeah, and Jarmo's been there for quite some time, right under Davidson, right? He's been the player development guy or the personnel guy, right? Yeah,
they came in at the same time, so they kind of felt like it was a tag team deal a package deal that if one left, they both would have left. But So now Jarmo's going to be the guy moving forward. And as far as the goaltending, I do think they're going to ride it out with Korpisalo this year, because I do think they want to see how he performs with a full season under his belt as being the guy. I know early last season Bob was having some struggles in net, so they gave Corpy the reins for 5, 6, 7 game stretches. He got the wins, but the stats and the level of play just wasn't quite there for me personally. So I think they want to see what he looks like with a year under his belt.
Interesting. Well, Rob, maybe that's the key. Maybe they'll give Korpisalo a shot, and then around the trade deadline in February, maybe that's, and if Columbus really needs that injection of veteran goaltending, maybe, and if the Rangers are struggling, maybe that's where the fit might come in with Lundqvist going to as a potential trade ship and potential destination Columbus. What do you think?
I don't know.
Or San Jose.
It'd be much easier to have this conversation after the draft tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true.
And see what kind of moves are made, especially if you want to you bring the Rangers back in with Chris Kreider. If anything happens with him tomorrow, so much will change after the draft, I think.
Very true. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some moves leading up to the draft or maybe even during the draft. You mentioned Chris Kreider. Anders Lee is a guy that I know the Rangers had looked at one time and or were thinking about, and he brings a powerful net presence to the team, something that frustrated Ranger fans and coaches with Kreider. They never got the net presence with Kreider that they wanted, and maybe Kreider goes for a first rounder, or maybe it's a straight up trade, or there's a lot of potential free agents out there. What did you think of the Trouba trade to the Rangers for a first round pick and Neil Pionk? What were your thoughts on that, Rob?
I think it's a good trade because they have the number 2 pick. Trouba's still young. He's going to demand a pretty big number, though, especially knowing what he knows. Would like to see the Rangers buy out Shattenkirk because he's unmovable. To have your highest paid defenseman not even step on the ice for the penalty kill is no good. And the amount of money going to him and Stahl is outrageous.
Yeah, it is. But you wonder why Winnipeg was so quick to unload Trouba. Didn't he kind of have a step back season? Has he reached the potential that they thought he had when they drafted him coming out? Was it Michigan, I believe he played, right? He played 1 year at Michigan. Well,
if they think he's hit his potential, it's still pretty good for the Rangers.
Yeah, well, that's true.
This is still a guy that had his best offensive year last year, 42 assists,
right? 50 points.
50 points, which would have put one of the top offensive players in the Rangers.
That is true.
Is true. He played almost 23 minutes a game. Maybe his team told Winnipeg that they weren't going to resign there.
Yeah, I know. His wife is a med student, I believe, and she wants to go to med school in New York, or maybe even she's a resident now. Maybe she wants to. And New York obviously offers a lot of opportunities there in the field of medicine. So he was not shy about bringing that up. So obviously that was an important factor as to accepting the trade or wanting to be traded out of Winnipeg. Yeah, it remains to be seen. I think tomorrow is going to be exciting, one of the more exciting drafts, especially in New York, where you've got the Devils 1 and the Rangers 2, two rivalries, and back-to-back number 1 and number 2. It should be very interesting. Any final thoughts, Rob and Logan, regarding Tortorella? Any tidbits of information that you'd like to pass on to the fans?
No, I think we about touched on it all. I think the big thing is just this upcoming season is really going to kind of define his time in Columbus, and whether he survives past this season or, it's just going to be very interesting to see. So I think that's about all I have.
Yeah, I hear you, man. How about you, Rob? Any closing thoughts on Torts?
Yeah, after everything we've said, when all is said and done, he's going to go down as the greatest American hockey coach of all time. Even if he doesn't get another cup, I know. Well, at least when he's done, Mike Sullivan, I guess, is still a possibility with what he's done. And there's always Badger Bob and Herb Brooks. But for a longevity perspective, and I guess you could also add Peter Laviolette to that. But
right,
Tortorella is definitely in that conversation.
Yeah, without a doubt. What is he? Is he at 700 wins yet? Is he close to 700? I think he's over 6 now, right?
He's over 6, but which is the most for an American hockey coach. with Laviolette right
He's
behind him.
he's at 620 right now, right around 620.
Yeah, he's a shoo-in for 700. I mean, he's won a cup. He's won the most games of any American coach. He's two-time Jack Adams Award winner. But you're right, he's in good company. Peter Laviolette, a former Ranger player. Badger Bob obviously was the king of American coaches at one time. You had Herb Brooks, again, another former Ranger coach and Olympic champion. And maybe David Quinn will be the next great American hockey coach, the current coach of the New York Rangers. That would be great if you're a Ranger fan if that happens. No, I would say I think, Rob, you're right. I think he probably right now is the greatest American coach of all time. Didn't Bob Johnson win 2 Stanley Cups? One with Calgary, one with Pittsburgh?
No, just the one.
Just the one, huh? So he's tough.
His success was, unless he won a cup somewhere else. He didn't win the Calgary Cup.
Pittsburgh, right?
He won the one cup with Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
His success is more so on the college level.
Right, without a doubt. And they got Mike Sullivan, who's still on the youngish side. I mean, the protege of John Tortorella. He's won 2 cups with Pittsburgh, right? Sully?
Yeah,
Yep.
he won 2.
Yeah. And he's right up there too. Any other closing thoughts, Rob? Anything else on John Tortorella? He's an interesting guy. You know, what a personality. You know, the Casey Stengel of hockey, maybe, or the Billy Martin of hockey, maybe, is more apropos. You know, quick wit, quick temper. You know, tough as nails. Tough on the press, you know, must drive the owners crazy, must drive his bosses crazy, but he's a winner. You know, he's a winning coach, and I guess it remains to be seen how long he lasts with Columbus, if this is his last stop, if he can win a cup and bring the cup home to Columbus for the first time in their history. Should be exciting, Logan, to be a fan of the Columbus Blue Jackets with him at the helm, and it'll be interesting to see what happens next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll probably be a little stressful moving forward, but that's the life of being a Columbus fan. So
you bet. Well, Logan, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It was great having you on. We'd like to have you on again in the future to give us an update on what's going on with Columbus. And Rob, always great, my man. Hope you're having a good summer. Should be interesting when you and I talk Ranger hockey next. Maybe we'll talk about Ranger playoff. You know, back in the 70s or the 80s, some of the more exciting playoffs in the history of the New York Rangers. Maybe we can bring that to the show next show or two. But I think the next show maybe we'll dominate. We'll talk about the draft. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Sounds good to me.
All right, Rob. Logan, thanks again. Rob, thanks again, buddy. And for the fans out there, thanks so much for tuning in. You know, you can access on any of the podcast channels. Please drop Rob and I your suggestions on our website. So for Rob Berger and Logan Smith, this is Tom Browning for the Forgotten Hockey Players of Broadway. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. This has been a Go Tommy Boy production.